Have you ever noticed how strange people become once they realize they can't fool you anymore? One day they are kind, supportive, and overly attentive, almost too good to be true. The next, their warmth evaporates into cold distance, cryptic silence, or subtle hostility. It's as if you flipped a hidden switch without even trying. Suddenly, the friend who once laughed at your jokes now looks at you with thinly veiled contempt. The companion who always had time for you now disappears without explanation. Why? Because nothing threatens a fake friend more than your awareness. When the mask slips, they don't apologize. They don't admit fault. They pivot. Let me tell you about Lauren, a woman who once believed friendship meant giving endless chances. She excused last-minute cancellations, brushed off cruel jokes, and assumed others had good intentions, even when evidence said otherwise. But everything shifted the night she overheard her so-called friends mocking her personal story, the one she had trusted them with. The sting wasn't just in the words, but in the coldness behind them. That's when Lauren's eyes opened. She realized the people she had fought to keep weren't friends at all. They were actors. The next day, Lauren visited her wise old neighbor, Mrs. Elwood. Listening patiently, Mrs. Elwood shared an image Lauren never forgot. "You ever seen a spider play dead?" she asked. Lauren nodded. "Some spiders don't run when threatened. They curl up and wait. The predator assumes they're harmless and walks away. But once the coast is clear, the spider moves again. Quick, precise, intentional. Fake friends are just like that. They play innocent, act harmless, and pretend to care. But the moment they know you see through them, everything changes." That single metaphor shattered the illusion. From that day forward, Lauren stopped chasing explanations, stopped defending herself, and stopped tolerating disrespect. And just as Mrs. Elwood predicted, her friends began to fade. One unfollowed her, another posted cryptic quotes, another clung to people they once despised. None of them said what was really happening, but Lauren knew. Fake friends don't confront you when they're exposed. They retreat, twist the story, and play the victim, because guilt isn't what they feel. Threatened, that's the real word. And here's where Stoic wisdom enters. The ancient Stoics taught that when deception falls apart, people reveal not their apology, but their fear of losing control. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the truth is simple, but the mind loves to complicate. Fake friends thrive in that complication. They want you to doubt what you saw, to question your instincts, to blame yourself. But clarity is your shield. Once you recognize their behavior for what it is, their power over you collapses. So how do fake friends really behave when the mask slips? What are the signs you can expect once your eyes are wide open, like Lauren's? And more importantly, how can Stoic philosophy help you stay calm and strong while their act unravels? In this video, we're diving into 7 manipulative reactions that reveal the true nature of false friends, and the wisdom that will keep you grounded when the performance ends. Brothers, if you're ready to stop being fooled, to see clearly, and to live with strength rooted in Stoicism, then don't just watch, engage. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. This is true Stoic way, where illusions end and strength begins. Reaction number 1. They play the victim instantly. When the mask of a fake friend begins to crack, their first instinct isn't confession. It isn't accountability. It isn't even an apology. No, their reflex is far more manipulative. They play the victim. It begins subtly, a look of sadness, a shift in tone, or a sudden emotional withdrawal. They don't say, "I'm sorry I lied to you." They don't admit, "You caught me pretending." Instead, the story flips. "I can't believe you'd think that of me. You're being unfair. You're judging me too quickly." The goal? To make you feel guilty for seeing the truth. You see, the power of a fake friend has always depended on your belief in their goodness. As long as you trusted their mask, they could keep manipulating. But the moment you open your eyes, the illusion shatters, and so does their control. In that moment, they panic. And instead of standing on honesty, they reach for the tool that has always worked before, your empathy. They lean on your compassion, hoping your kindness will blur your clarity. If you've always been the forgiving one, the one who gives the benefit of the doubt, then this tactic is designed for you. Because now the spotlight isn't on their deception anymore, it's on their feelings. It's no longer about the lie they told. It's about how hurt they are that you would think so little of them. But here's where the Stoics give us piercing clarity. Seneca once said, "The man who is wrong always finds a way to appear wronged." Think about that. The guilty don't argue their case with truth. They disguise themselves in sorrow. They exchange responsibility for performance. They manipulate perception in order to preserve control. And if you're not careful, you'll fall for it. You'll feel bad for confronting them. You'll question yourself, wondering if maybe you misjudged. But the truth hasn't changed. It's just been covered with a theatrical mask of victimhood. Let me share with you the story of Tyler. He had a friend he trusted like a brother. Over time, Tyler began to notice cracks in the friendship, half-truths, excuses that didn't add up, and loyalty that seemed one-sided. One evening, with calm and respect, Tyler confronted him. He laid out the facts plainly, expecting either denial or an honest conversation. But what came next wasn't defense. It was a breakdown. His friend's eyes welled up. He claimed he felt attacked. He said Tyler was being cruel, that he never thought Tyler would turn on him like this. For a moment, Tyler almost believed him. Almost. Guilt tugged at his chest. Maybe he had been too harsh. Maybe he should have stayed quiet. But then, a sobering thought cut through. Real friends don't need lies to feel close. And real pain doesn't require an audience. In that instant, Tyler recognized the performance for what it was. A tactic, not truth. He didn't lose a friend that day. He lost a manipulator pretending to be one. So, how do you handle it when fake friends play the victim? First, don't fall for the show. Emotion without accountability is not sincerity. It's strategy. Anyone can cry, but not everyone can change. Second, stay anchored in facts. What did you see? What did you hear? What do you know? Don't let tears wash away the evidence. Third, let them sit with their discomfort. That pain they're displaying isn't really about your words. It's about their mask slipping. Let it fall. You don't need to rescue them from the consequences of their own deception. The truth is, the moment you stop being fooled, they stop being powerful. And that is what they fear the most. A fake friend without your belief is just an actor without an audience. And without an audience, the performance ends. Reaction number 2, they accuse you of changing. One of the oldest tricks in the book emerges when fake friends realize they can no longer manipulate you. They accuse you of changing. And it never comes as a compliment. They don't say you've grown wiser, stronger, or more grounded. They don't admire your clarity or your courage. No, they frame your transformation as betrayal. To them, you are no longer the easy version of yourself. You've stopped nodding along, stopped accepting vague excuses, stopped absorbing endless disappointments. And for someone who built their comfort on your silence, that shift feels like a threat. Their words often sound like this: "You're not the same anymore. You've changed. You're not fun like you used to be. You think you're better than us now." What they really mean is simple. You've stopped being easy to control. Let's look deeper. Fake friends thrive when you play a role that benefits them. The listener who never speaks up, the fixer who always repairs what others break, the giver who never asks in return. As long as you stayed in that role, they had access to your loyalty without effort. But the moment you decide to evolve, to grow stronger, to demand balance, the illusion cracks. Instead of reflecting on their own selfishness, they redirect. Your boundaries become arrogance. Your honesty becomes cruelty. Your strength becomes selfishness. Because if they admit you've changed for the better, they'd have to admit they never truly deserved your loyalty in the first place. This is where Stoic clarity slices through their accusations. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be seen as ignorant or foolish." His wisdom is timeless. Growth often looks like rebellion to people who depended on your old weaknesses. When you start choosing peace over chaos, truth over flattery, and integrity over exploitation, some will misinterpret it as betrayal. But their discomfort is not your problem. It's their reaction to losing control. Consider the story of Melissa. For years, she was the glue in her friend group, always available, always forgiving, never demanding. She stayed up late on calls, gave rides without being asked twice, and endured jokes at her expense. She thought this was loyalty. But over time, Melissa noticed the cracks: favoritism, gossip, and a disturbing pattern. Her kindness was treated like currency, something to be used, not respected. So Melissa decided to change. She started setting boundaries. She stopped answering every late-night call. She no longer accepted recycled apologies for the same repeated betrayals. She began protecting her peace, and almost immediately, the backlash came. "You've changed. You're not fun anymore. You used to be there for us. What happened?" But Melissa hadn't changed in the way they meant. She had woken up. She was no longer willing to play a role in her own exploitation. What they called change was simply her refusal to remain small. This is the critical truth. Growth requires sacrifice. Sometimes that sacrifice is the illusion of friendship. So how do you respond when they accuse you of changing? First, don't defend your evolution. Growth does not require permission slips. If you've become stronger, clearer, and calmer, you don't owe anyone an apology for that. Second, let them talk. The people who genuinely care about you will celebrate your progress. Those who benefited from your silence will resent it. Their reaction reveals the truth more than your defense ever could. Third, stand firm. You are not here to stay the same just to protect someone else's comfort. You are here to grow, to rise, to live aligned with your values. If the only version of you they loved was the one who never questioned them, then it was never love. It was convenience dressed as friendship. The Stoic perspective is clear. When you choose virtue and clarity, you will be misunderstood by those who profit from confusion. Let them misunderstand. Let them grumble. Their judgment does not define your path. Your character does. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever been told you've changed simply because you grew stronger, remember this: that accusation is not an insult. It's proof that you've outgrown the cage they built for you. If this message strikes a chord, subscribe to True Stoic Way for more clarity on facing life with strength. Here we honor growth, celebrate resilience, and remind each other that becoming unshakable is the highest form of change. Reaction number 3. They subtly insult you disguised as jokes. When direct manipulation no longer works, fake friends reach for something slipperier, something they can deny with a smirk: humor. They turn to subtle mockery, the kind wrapped in laughter, the kind that leaves you wondering, am I being too sensitive or was that a jab? It rarely sounds like open hostility. Instead, it slips out as sarcastic comments. Wow, someone's fancy now. Guess you're too important for us these days. Careful, don't meditate us into silence, Zen master. On the surface, it looks like banter, but deep down you feel the sting. It's not comedy, it's control. This tactic works because humor offers deniability. If you call it out, they laugh. Relax, it's just a joke. And suddenly you're the one who looks uptight, while they get away with throwing shade disguised as wit. But here's the truth. Jokes that consistently target your growth, your boundaries, or your peace are not harmless. They are hostility sugar-coated. Seneca captured this dynamic perfectly. Mockery is the coward's weapon. Laughter is their mask. Real strength doesn't hide behind sarcasm. Real confidence doesn't need to belittle. But when someone feels threatened by your growth, they'll use humor as a socially acceptable dagger, hoping to shrink you back into the person you once were. The agreeable, silent, easy-to-use version of yourself. Let me tell you about Brian. For years, Brian was the quiet yes guy in his group. Always agreeable, never confronting, always going along. But after doing inner work, Brian began to change. He started voicing his feelings calmly, setting boundaries, and prioritizing his peace. And that's when the jokes began. His oldest friend smirked in front of others. Here comes Zen Brian. Better not say anything or he'll meditate us all into a coma. The group laughed, but Brian didn't. He knew this wasn't lighthearted fun. It was a reminder. We liked you better when you were silent. What his friend couldn't admit openly was jealousy. Brian's peace highlighted his chaos. Brian's growth magnified his stagnation. And instead of facing that discomfort, he weaponized humor to try to pull Brian back down. Here's the Stoic truth. When someone mocks the very qualities that make you stronger, it's not reflection of your weakness. It's evidence of their insecurity. Your independence threatens their dependence. Your clarity reveals their confusion. Your calm exposes their turmoil. And rather than confront that, they disguise resentment as entertainment. So how do you respond? First, trust your gut. If it feels off, it is. Laughter doesn't cancel out cruelty. Second, don't play along. You don't need to smile to protect their comfort. Forcing yourself to laugh at a barb only gives it permission to continue. Third, remember the deeper truth. Real friends don't mock your growth. They celebrate it. They don't feel threatened by your peace. They're inspired by it. They don't try to pull you back. They walk forward with you. At the end of the day, fake friends joke about the exact things they can't control. Real friends cheer for the exact things that make you unshakable. That's the dividing line. So the next time someone says relax, it's just a joke, ask yourself, is this joke meant to uplift or to undermine? Because humor can be a bridge, but in the hands of the insecure, it becomes a blade. And you were never meant to dim your light, just to keep others comfortable in the dark. Reaction number 4. They distance themselves without explanation. Not every fake friend explodes in drama. Some prefer a quieter, but no less painful exit. Instead of confrontation, they simply fade away. One day the texts are frequent, the calls consistent, the laughter constant. The next, you're staring at a screen that stays silent. Messages are answered with one-word replies. Invitations are ignored. And when you look back, you can't even pinpoint the exact moment it all began. At first, this vanishing act feels like confusion. You replay the last conversation over and over. Did I say something wrong? Did I offend them without knowing? But deep down, you already know the truth. Something changed. You changed. And for people who only valued the older version of you, the version without boundaries, without clarity, without strength, your transformation makes you unnecessary to them. This is the cruelty of silent distancing. It looks passive, but it's calculated. Fake friends rarely want to deal with confrontation because confrontation would expose their selfishness. So instead, they drift away under the guise of being busy, leaving you to wonder what went wrong. It's not confusion, it's strategy. Their silence is punishment, a way of saying, you no longer serve my ego, so I no longer have use for you. But here is where Stoic wisdom steadies the heart. Epictetus once said, when the wrong people leave your life, the right peace enters. His words cut through the fog. Their absence isn't a tragedy, it's clarity. The truth is, if a friendship collapses the moment you stop betraying yourself to maintain it, then it was never a friendship at all. Their departure is not rejection, it's revelation. Consider the story of Jenna. For years, Jenna had a close friend she did everything with. They went out together, studied together, and shared secrets. But Jenna was always the one adjusting, always the one apologizing, always the one making space for someone else's needs. Over time, exhaustion set in. Jenna started setting boundaries. Small ones at first. She stopped rushing to fix problems she didn't cause. She stopped over-explaining herself. She chose silence instead of begging for understanding. And then slowly the shift came. The calls grew fewer, the texts shorter, the inside jokes disappeared, and eventually there was nothing. No fight, no explanation, just absence. At first, Jenna felt crushed. She thought she'd done something wrong. But with time, the perspective sharpened. She realized her so-called friend hadn't loved her. They had loved the version of her who stayed small, compliant, and self-sacrificing. Once she stopped playing that role, the friendship dissolved, not because Jenna was unworthy, but because the truth had finally surfaced. This is the lesson the Stoics teach us. Silence is not always loss. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Fake friends retreat not because you failed, but because you no longer fuel their illusions. And when someone pulls away after you find your voice, it means they were never really listening to begin with. So how do you handle it when you face this silent disappearance? First, don't chase. Their distance speaks volumes. let them walk. Second, don't internalize the rejection. Their leaving is not a measure of your worth. It is a mirror of their dependency. Third, make peace with the clarity it brings. Their silence may hurt, but it also frees you. The energy you once spent maintaining the illusion can now be spent on building real connections with people who stand with you, not against you. In the end, when someone drifts away because you started protecting your peace, it's not the end of a friendship. It's the beginning of your freedom. If you've ever felt this silent disappearance, know that you are not alone. Join the True Stoic Way community. Subscribe today and grow stronger together. Because here, we don't chase illusions. We embrace clarity, and we build resilience that no silence can shake. Reaction number 5. They try to turn others against you. Not all betrayals happen face to face. Some unfold quietly, behind your back, with whispers instead of arguments. When fake friends realize they can no longer control you directly, they often attempt a darker tactic, turning others against you. It doesn't always look like outright slander. It begins with subtle suggestions. She's been acting different lately. I don't know what happened, but he just snapped. They've changed. Something feels off. These words don't accuse you directly, but they plant seeds of doubt. Soon, people who once laughed with you start to grow distant. Group chats grow silent. Invitations stop arriving. And you're left wondering how a private conflict became a public shadow. This isn't confusion, it's sabotage. Fake friends know they've lost control of you, but they fear something greater. Losing control of the image they've built for themselves. And what better way to protect their mask than by painting you as the villain? Here's what's really happening. You've seen through their manipulation. You've recognized the patterns they'd rather keep hidden. That makes you dangerous to their reputation. So instead of admitting fault, they rewrite the script. In their new narrative, you're the aggressor and they're the wounded party. And they'll tell this version of events to anyone who will listen, not to heal, but to isolate you. Marcus Aurelius captured the antidote to this perfectly. Character needs no defense. It is always revealed in the fire. This is the heart of Stoic wisdom. Lies can travel quickly, but they burn out. Character, lived consistently, outlasts every whisper. You don't need to rush around proving yourself to those who only hear one side of the story. Your life, your actions, your integrity will prove everything in time. Consider Josh's story. Josh had a longtime friend, someone he trusted deeply. Over the years, he noticed manipulation, guilt trips, one-sided loyalty, constant excuses. Eventually, Josh confronted him, calmly, directly, without drama. He wasn't angry, he was simply done. But within weeks, Josh noticed a change. Messages from mutual friends dried up. Invitations vanished. Group chats fell silent. Confused, Josh eventually discovered why. The friend he had confronted had been whispering lies, telling people Josh was unstable, that he had lashed out aggressively, that he wasn't the same person anymore. At first, the isolation hurt deeply. Josh felt defeated, cornered by rumors he couldn't chase down. But then, something shifted. Instead of fighting noise with more noise, Josh chose silence anchored in truth. He lived steadily, calmly, consistently. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't plead. And over time, the cracks in the lies became impossible for others to ignore. One by one, people saw the reality, and the truth rose, as it always does. This is what Stoicism teaches us. Never let gossip steal your peace. You can't control the words others speak, but you can control the life you live. The people who truly belong in your life will not accept rumors without seeing you for themselves. Those who believe lies without question reveal their own lack of depth, and perhaps they never belonged at your side in the first place. So how do you handle it when fake friends try to poison the well of your reputation? First, don't play defense. You owe no explanations to those who don't ask you directly. Second, keep living your truth. Stay steady, calm, and consistent. Your life is a testimony no rumor can erase. Third, remember that peace is more valuable than reputation. A good name is important, but your character is priceless. Don't sacrifice inner calm just to win back people who would rather listen to lies than learn the truth. At the end of the day, when they try to destroy your image to protect theirs, recognize this: they're not really attacking you. They're running from themselves. And nothing exposes fake friendship faster than your refusal to be shaken by rumors. Reaction number 6. They accuse you of being too harsh. When fake friends run out of excuses, when the lies and manipulations no longer hold, they reach for one last defense. They accuse you of being too harsh. It doesn't matter if your voice was calm, your words measured, your tone steady. To them, truth itself is cruelty. You could speak with gentleness, but the moment you draw a boundary, they clutch their chest and say, "You didn't have to say it like that. You've become so cold. That was unnecessary." But what they call harshness is not harshness at all. It is clarity. Fake friends depend on your silence. They thrive when you sugarcoat, soften, or protect their ego. But when you finally stop covering their behavior and speak plainly, they panic. Direct words shine too bright a spotlight on their actions, and instead of owning the harm they caused, they escape into the role of the misunderstood victim. By painting you as mean or cruel, they avoid the accountability that truth demands. Epictetus put it simply: "He who fears the truth seeks comfort in illusion." This is exactly what's happening. Your honesty forces them to look into a mirror, and the reflection terrifies them. Instead of changing, they accuse the mirror of being too sharp. Consider Nicole's story. Nicole had always been the easygoing one, quiet, agreeable, the person who went along to keep the peace. But years of one-sided friendships wore her down. One friend in particular constantly interrupted her, dismissed her struggles, and made jokes at her expense. For a long time, Nicole endured it. But one day, something shifted. Calmly, without anger, she said, "This friendship doesn't feel mutual. I feel unheard and disrespected." She didn't yell, she didn't accuse, she just told the truth. And yet, her friend's response wasn't reflection, it was retaliation. He told others Nicole had become cold, that she was mean, that she wasn't the same person anymore. To him, her honesty was cruelty, because it disrupted the illusion he had enjoyed for so long, that Nicole would always stay quiet, always absorb the disrespect, always keep the peace at her own expense. But Nicole didn't shrink back. She recognized that speaking truth wasn't betrayal, it was protection. And slowly, she realized something profound. The people worth keeping in her life never needed her silence in order to stay close. They valued her honesty. They respected her boundaries. They welcomed her clarity. This is the Stoic way. Truth spoken calmly and courageously is not an attack. It is a boundary. And boundaries are not betrayals. They are the highest form of self-respect. So how do you respond when fake friends accuse you of being too harsh? First, ask yourself honestly, were you cruel or were you clear? If your words came from calm truth and not spite, you owe no apology. Second, stand by your clarity. Don't let guilt twist you back into silence. Fake friends will always confuse strength with cruelty because your boundaries expose their lack of them. Third, remember the cost of silence. Every time you dilute your voice to protect someone else's comfort, you betray yourself. And no friendship built on self-betrayal is worth keeping. At the end of the day, when they say you've been too harsh, what they're really saying is, "I can't handle honesty." And that isn't your burden to carry. Stand with us at True Stoic Way. Subscribe now and learn how clarity protects your peace. Because in this community, truth is never cruelty, and protecting your soul is never harsh. It is the only way to live free. Reaction number 7. They eventually reveal their true colors. Masks can be worn for a while, but never forever. One of the most inevitable outcomes of dealing with fake friends is this. Eventually, they reveal their true colors. It doesn't happen in a dramatic explosion. Often it's quiet, gradual, and unmistakable. A comment cuts a little deeper than before. The silence between you stretches longer. The charm that once felt warm now feels forced. And the more grounded you become, the more their performance unravels. At first, they may still try to hold the illusion, sending friendly messages, offering half-hearted support, pretending to care when it's convenient. But as time passes, maintaining the act becomes exhausting. And when they can no longer play the role, what was once hidden becomes impossible to ignore. Here's the truth. Fake friends rely on your denial. As long as you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, they thrive. But the moment you stop justifying their behavior, the mask begins to slip. And when the mask slips, what emerges is not apology, but the reality they've been concealing. Pettiness, resentment, cold detachment. Seneca said it best. Time is the wisest counselor. It always exposes the truth. Time doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't need arguments or investigations. It simply reveals. People can act, manipulate, and pretend for a season, but character always pushes through. And when it does, it leaves no room for illusions. Consider Daniel's story. For years, Daniel had a best friend who always played both sides. When Daniel succeeded, the friend would offer lukewarm congratulations. When Daniel struggled, support came only when it was convenient. Deep down, Daniel sensed the imbalance, but he excused it. That's just how he is. Then Daniel made a big life change. He left a toxic job and began building confidence. Instead of celebrating, his friend quietly resented the shift. The phone calls slowed, the conversations grew shallow, and finally, without warning, the friend stopped reaching out altogether. No fight, no goodbye, just silence. Through mutual acquaintances, Daniel later heard what had been said about him, dismissive remarks, envy disguised as indifference. In that moment, the truth surfaced. He hadn't lost a friend. He had lost the illusion of one. This is the Stoic lens. When someone shows you who they really are, it's not betrayal. It's breakthrough. You are not grieving a true friendship. You are mourning a mask. The connection you thought you had was never rooted in honesty. It was rooted in convenience. So how do you respond when the mask finally falls? First, don't look away. Accept the truth that is being shown to you. Pretending not to see only prolongs the pain. Second, don't argue with the reveal. When people expose themselves through actions, no amount of words will cover it again. Believe what you see. Third, don't mourn the mask. You cannot lose what was never real. What you lose is the illusion, and what you gain is clarity. At the end of the day, clarity is freedom. Seeing people as they are, without the costumes, without the disguises, liberates you. It frees you from investing energy in illusions, frees you from carrying one-sided bonds, frees you to build relationships on truth. So when someone's true colors finally show, don't call it tragedy, call it revelation. Because every mask that falls brings you closer to a life anchored not in appearances, but in reality. And reality, no matter how painful, is always the beginning of freedom. We've walked through the 7 ways fake friends react when the mask slips. Each reaction, though different in style, is born from the same root: fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of exposure. Fear of you seeing the truth they worked so hard to hide. First, they play the victim, trying to shift the spotlight from their deception onto your compassion. Then, they accuse you of changing. Not because you've lost your way, but because you've outgrown their control. When that fails, they mock your growth with jokes, using humor as a shield for their insecurity. If sarcasm doesn't work, they may simply distance themselves without explanation, fading away in silence, so you'll blame yourself instead of recognizing their selfishness. And when silence isn't enough, they may escalate, turning others against you, weaving whispers that paint you as the villain while they play the misunderstood saint. And if you still stand firm, they'll reach for the last cards, accusing you of being too harsh when in reality, all you did was speak the truth calmly and clearly. Finally, when all performances collapse, the inevitable happens. They reveal their true colors, not with words but with actions that strip away any illusion that friendship was ever real. 7 reactions, 7 masks, and behind them all the same truth. Fake friends do not mourn the loss of you. They mourn the loss of control over you. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes survival. The Stoics remind us that truth requires no decoration. As Epictetus taught, those who fear truth cling to illusion. As Seneca said, Mockery is the coward's weapon. And as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, character needs no defense. It shines most in the fire. So when fake friends unravel, remember this: their behavior is not about your worth. It is about their weakness. You did not lose something valuable. You shed something harmful. You did not push them away. You simply stopped pulling them closer. Do not chase closure. You don't need them to explain, to apologize, or to validate what you already know. The moment you saw the truth, closure arrived. The clarity you gained is enough. Instead, stay calm. Live steadily. Build your life on virtue, not vengeance. Real strength is not in proving others wrong. It is in refusing to be broken by their attempts to manipulate you. Fake friends feed on drama. Stoics feed on clarity. So let this be your guiding thought. You are not weaker for losing them. You are stronger for having seen them clearly. Every exit they make creates space for peace, for authenticity, for relationships grounded in mutual respect. And nothing is more freeing than a life unburdened by illusions. Brothers, if you've walked this path, if you've felt the sting of betrayal, the silence of abandonment, the weight of false loyalty, know this: you are not alone. We are building a community of men who see through deception, who stand strong in the face of loss, and who live unshakable lives rooted in Stoic wisdom. So here's what I ask of you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs clarity, and leave a comment with your own story of strength. And most of all, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Together, we are building more than an audience. We are building a brotherhood of men who know their worth, who live with courage, and who choose truth over illusion. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your freedom.